Hello?
Hello, comrade.
Hi, Kallie.
Hi, Michelle. What's been on your mind?
Oh, I don't know. Same old. Underground spy syndicate, and double-dealing oil dynasties and time portals.
Same.
Want to record an episode?
Of our super cool podcast, Secret Antenna.
Yeah, the one about modern history.
As a story made of many nefarious plans.
Yeah, that one.
Okay, try 2. Oh, I need to get out of this time. Okay. Michelle, my friend. Hello.
Hello, Kallie. Hi.
Hi. Hi. Okay. Welcome, our dear, fair, cool listeners to Secret Antenna.
Yay.
Today we are talking about the ATF and the ATF in the situations at Ruby Ridge and Waco, Texas.
Wow.
These topics are totally, these are just really, really crazy stories. And I started actually researching this, back in May, so I'm, really excited to finally be doing this episode now in October of the year of our Lord, 2020. Okay, so the ATF is a branch of our stupid government that was started in 1972 as an independent bureau within the Treasury Department, because basically it seems like the IRS created this Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms to kind of enforce taxation, you know?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So this is the ATF's theoretical job that it was created for. But, being a government agency, I feel like when government agencies are created, they're not, dissolved. We've talked about this before.
Right.
So, in time, government agencies have to, come up with other ways to, justify their existence.
Right.
So they kind of, get creative, transform. At this point that we're going to be talking about, which is the 90s, a truly wild time where the government got away with a lot of stuff.
True.
When you think about the 90s, I honestly, it's shocking.
Mm-hmm.
It's shocking what the government, I mean, they still get away with whatever, but in the 90s, it was just a crazy time. Yeah, and, the way that the ATF kind of used all these horrible tactics and were just total idiots that were so wrong about so many things and caused these horrible disasters that killed so many people in, horribly violent ways with, total psychological warfare and, total overuse of weapons, using military-grade weapons to attack people that had, handguns and all this crazy stuff. These stories are honestly very wild. So now we will tell you all the reasons why the ATF sucks and are liars, and the FBI are also liars. Waco is definitely, the big event that that is, 80-something people died in this, massive fire. But the Ruby Ridge incident, which 2 people died and I think 1 U.S. Marshal died, is pretty connected to Waco in terms of just that the line that it drew for like the ATF needing to justify itself, because Ruby Ridge was an ATF disaster that happened August 21st, 1992 in Ruby Ridge, Idaho, which is like very, very, very northern Idaho. It's like almost on the border. It's probably like really close to the border to
So
Canada.
like a year before Waco? Is this like a year before Waco?
This is 6 months.
Okay.
This is 6 months. 6 months before Waco.
All right.
This happens. So basically, what happened at Ruby Ridge was this guy, Randy Weaver, who was an Army veteran who was stationed at Fort Greene, North Carolina during Vietnam. So I don't think he went to Vietnam. He was in the U.S. He was this deeply religious Christian guy who struggled to find a church that matched his views, because basically his views are like some racist nonsense. He's like a white separatist.
Okay.
So he, doesn't want to be in this like Babylonian heathen society that like isn't just white people. So he's going to like do his own thing. So he gets married to this woman, Vicky, who is also into this racial nonsense, and they move, they leave. They move to this really remote town in Idaho because they want to be away from civilization. They leave in the 80s. They're leaving in the 80s. This is in the 80s when they decide to move to the tip of Idaho. So Randy Weaver is somebody that is like going to Aryan Nation meetings. Like he's definitely like, he's like, I'm not a white supremacist, but obviously he is. And he's going to Aryan Nation meetings, and I think that seems to be like what really kind of piqued the interest of the ATF and the FBI. There was like a sting operation low-key against him. Like he originally was arrested for allegedly selling like a sawed-off shotgun to an ATF agent who was undercover. But it seems like it was probably like the FBI trying to find a reason to arrest this guy because he had information on Aryan Nation and they wanted his information. Because that's like what the FBI does. They're like information gatherers. They want information, so they're like, oh, we want to get information from this person. He seems like a person that, he's definitely like a weird gun hoarder. Like he definitely has guns. He doesn't like the government. Like he probably was doing illegal gun stuff because he doesn't want to talk to the government about his guns. He just wants his guns that he thinks he has like a God-given and like constitutional right to have. But when they got him on this charge, they told him if he testified against the Aryan Nation, he wouldn't face charges, but he refused, and that is why he was charged. And that is what led to this raid, basically. He missed a court date. He missed a court date for this charge, but it's weird because, like, I found information that said, like, his parole officer had given him the incorrect date of his hearing, and he thought it was in March, but it had actually been in February. And whether or not he would have gone anyways, I don't know, but I just thought that was kind of weird. And then when he missed his court date, there's just a lot of weird parts. Then, so for the next year after he missed his court date, they tried to reach him via mail, which really doesn't make sense to me because I'm like, he literally lives in a cabin in the woods with no electricity or running water. Like, who's delivering his mail? So at this cabin in the woods is Randy Weaver, his wife Vicky. This is in 1992 now. They have 5 kids, one's a baby, and this guy Kevin Harris, who's like their friend, who's just there. So at this point, there are U.S. Marshals like investigating the Weavers and like stalking them in the woods. It's just so weird to me because I'm like, I know. It's like these are like paranoid, anti-government Christian separatists with guns,
Mm-hmm.
and y'all are just, like, spying on them. Like, you are hiding out in the woods. Like...
And you're fully developing
about-
their belief system for them. They're like, I'm telling you, the
Yes.
government's in the woods watching me. And they are.
They are.
And they
the
are.
government's in the woods. Like, they were, like, gathering info. I mean, who knows for how long? It could have been
Right.
the entire year. Like, it took an entire year from him missing his court date. Maybe even longer than a year. Yeah, it was longer than a year. It was almost a year and a half from his initial missed court date to when they did the raid. So the marshals are, like, in the woods gathering intel often. One day, and these, again, they're, like, in the woods with dogs, like, hunting. So one day, the dogs spot the marshals or notice the marshals or something. And then this causes this, like, you know, I don't think they knew this was going to happen. But there was a shootout between the two people that were in the woods with the dog, which is this random friend, Kevin Harris, and the son, Sammy, who's 14 years old. And they shoot and kill the son, Sammy. So the 14-year-old is now dead, killed by a cop in the woods. And they also killed one of the dogs. And also one of the U.S. Marshals was killed. So then the FBI, specifically the hostage rescue team, came in and worked with started working with the ATF, and, like, they kind of made a whole situation. The next day, so the day after the 14-year-old was shot in the woods, the FBI came in with, okay, again, I want to say at this point there are 3 living adults and 4 children. They came in with hundreds of law enforcement agents through the woods and ordered to shoot any armed adult on sight.
What?
Which, from their reconnaissance, they learned that, like, every person that lived in this cabin was armed at all times. So basically, I mean, probably the adults. I actually don't know if the kids were too. But, like, their orders were just to kill them, basically. It was, like, to come in and kill them, because it was, like, kill anybody who's holding a gun. But they knew from their reconnaissance that they were all going to be holding guns.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, it's really fucked up. So, that day, an agent, his name is Horuchi or something, he just shot into the cabin, and it wound up killing Vicky while she was holding their 10-month-old baby.
Oh.
So, yeah. So she gets shot and dies in the cabin where everybody is hiding, like, holed up, while she's holding her baby, because the guy just shot into the cabin.
Mm-hmm.
Also, at this point, too, there's, like, hundreds of protesters gathered there, but I don't really understand, like, where they were in relation to it, but people knew this was happening, and they were protesting what the ATF was doing, because it's, like, a Second Amendment thing. They're like,
Right.
You're going after these people's guns or whatever. So eventually the total siege was 11 days of
What?
this standoff.
Wow.
Yeah. I know. And that, again, it's like there's 4 there's 4 kids in the house with them.
That
like a
they're
teenage
shooting
girl
into,
and, like,
yeah.
they're just shooting into the house.
Okay.
And eventually Randy did surrender. It kind of took another army guy, or, like, whatever, his Green Beret thing, coming in and being like, yo, dude, just surrender. And Randy was like, no, I'll die here before I surrender. And the guy was like, no, just surrender. So he did. And he was immediately arrested for all these things. He was never charged or convicted of anything except for, like, missing his initial court date. That's the only thing he ever actually got,
What?
legally in trouble for. I know.
And
Hundreds
how
of
many-
FBI agents.
How many people died?
So, one U.S. Marshal, Vicky, the son, Sammy, So three total.
Oh my God. So 3 people die over this. Hundreds of ATF, all of these resources, 11 days of standoff for this.
Yeah, it's really bad.
Wow.
I mean, fuck white supremacists, but this is still insane.
That's not why they were there. The ATF didn't go there.
That's not why they were there.
Right.
No. They're like, they probably don't care about that at all. They're just like, literally, you're not paying taxes for your guns.
Right.
So we're pissed.
Right.
Like, that's what it is.
Well, and what is they asked him about this whole story is, I can see why people were protesting it. This kind of overreach and this kind of overstep causes so many problems.
Yeah, and also, like, you know, the white supremacist, like, gun people definitely, like, have each other's backs.
Yeah, right.
So I'm not, like, surprised a bunch of people, like, shut up. And outside of that, I mean, it is, like, it's total, like, overuse of government force. It's really wild. Right. So a Department of Justice task force report found many faults with how federal agents handled the Ruby Ridge situation, such as they ruled that allowing snipers to shoot any armed adult on site without warning to surrender was unconstitutional.
Okay.
Because that was literally what they were told to do. They were like, snipe them from really far away. Don't warn them that you're coming. If they're holding a gun, just shoot them dead.
Right.
That one cop was, like, unjustified in firing the shot that killed Vicki Weaver. Duh. Since Randy Weaver and Kevin Harris, the friend, were, like, retreating into the cabin when he fired. And then that cop had also placed Vicki Weaver and her children at risk by targeting the cabin door without knowing who was behind it. I mean, like, duh. All of those things, of course, are horrible, in addition to, like, a bunch of other things. At least one FBI agent was convicted in participating in a cover-up about Ruby Ridge. He pled guilty. This guy, Michael Cahoe, pled guilty to obstruction of justice and was sentenced to 18 months in prison and a $4,000 fine after admitting to destroying a report that condemned the FBI's response during the standoff. Surprising no one. Like, hello. And then that guy who shot and killed Vicki Weaver. This is fucking crazy. What I'm about to say is not chill. The sniper who killed Vicki Weaver was charged with manslaughter, but a judge dismissed the case, claiming federal agents could not be charged for actions taken in the line of duty.
Oh, wow. Incredible. Wow. Okay.
I can't handle that. It's just like,
wow.
Oh, you just, like, have immunity because, like, it's literally like, oh no, literally you legally have immunity to do whatever you want if you're in the line of duty. You can't be charged.
Right.
That's so stupid.
Well, I mean, how can you expect anybody to have any, like, accountability for their actions ahead of time if they know that they're never going to be asked for them? Like, it's outrageous.
And clearly that's all around us all the time. Where all these cops know that whatever they do, you know, whether it's a U.S. Marshal, ATF agent, or, like, just a stupid cop in a small town, they're all just like, I can do whatever I want.
And
because there's proof all around me that nobody is going to fucking convict me because we're all on the same team.
Right. And even judges have set precedents for it. And, you know, and to be clear, the ATF, they are alcohol, tobacco, firearms. They are cops. They are part of the DOJ, part of the Treasury Department.
Yeah, it's like they're IRS cops.
Right.
It's like they are cops, and their motivation is to, like, get people who are, like, skirting taxes.
IRS cops.
I mean,
out shooting you at your house because they want to tax your guns. That's crazy. That's outrageous.
It's insane. And I feel it's like I hate, like, agreeing with the psycho right-wing people because there's obviously way more things that we disagree on, but I'm just like, yeah, this is crazy that the government can come to your house and shoot you because you didn't pay taxes on your guns. Like,
it's unacceptable.
Fucking...
It's unacceptable.
It's just like, wow.
And if, it's
just crazy.
It's unacceptable for the government to do that. And if, you don't have something to say about it just because you're like, well, I didn't like that guy anyway, that causes the kind of historical moment that we're in, actually. Like, in order to protect these freedoms and these rights that we have, sometimes you just have to say, no, go get him for being part of the Aryan nation, fine with me, but not because you want to tax his guns, not fine with me.
Yeah. It's just like, there is actually so much nuance in these situations,
there is.
And it's like, yeah, there's just nuance. I mean, fuck the government. This is just like one of a million reasons why government like doesn't work and shouldn't exist.
Right.
Like, just stop. Just fucking stop. Just let a bitch live. Like, if I see you in the street, like, I'm gonna fight you because you're a stupid racist. But like, I want to be able to have a fucking gun and not get shot at by the government if I don't pay taxes on it. Like,
Right. Well, and
Anyways,
just go out to the woods and do what you want to do. I don't care if you're out in the woods being a racist. I really don't care.
Left.
Right.
At least they got, I'm
just
like,
go.
at least y'all fucking left.
Just leave. Just go. That's exactly what I want them all to do. Bye. Go.
Yeah, just go. Just go. Just fucking leave. Please leave. Please leave our Babylonian society where we like kind of want racial equality. Where we do want that. Yeah, it's wild times. Anyways, okay, so this was a bad look for the FBI hostage rescue team and the ATF, surprising no one. They obviously looked like total dicks after this situation because how could they not? It's like, you are honestly fighting people who I think are assholes, and still I know that like you're the fucking asshole in the situation because what you did is so beyond.
Right.
So Randy Weaver was again, like I said, Randy Weaver was charged with a bunch of stuff, but was only convicted for the original issue of missing a court date. Randy Weaver sued the government and was awarded $3.1 million, which honestly is not that much money for killing your wife and son and ruining your entire life.
No, for sure.
And then Kevin Harris, a family friend, got like $400,000. So 6 months later, is when the Waco Siege happens. Okay, like they are literally coming off this situation, being like, "Oh shit, we fucked up. We gotta do something. We look like assholes. Like, we gotta fix our image." Because
in the public thought they had a bad image from that.
I honestly don't know how much this story was reported. On. Like, definitely people would know about it if they knew about, if they're like gun people or like racist, but like you didn't hear about it.
Right.
You were alive. Right. Like you were like you were reading the news, in 92 and you didn't know about it.
I just don't recall it.
I don't think it was widely reported on. Okay. But I think the ATF needs to prove themselves really importantly internally. Like they looked like dicks. They looked like dicks to everybody. Like, this is a fiasco. Like, what the fuck were you guys doing? And even though like they're all on the same team, it's still just like, you can't do shit like this. Like, this isn't like, this is too public of a mess. This is something that like people know about, and it's like, it's just too public. Okay. Even if it's, they still repress everything and they like repress information getting out, but it's like, this still happened and people knew about it.
Okay.
So
they're like, we'll make a bigger spectacle to cover it up. Okay.
Exactly. Because they're like, okay, we're going to get, because really, I'm going to get into the backstory, but on the surface, Waco and the Branch Davidians in Mount Carmel, which people did know about, people knew about David Koresh, people knew about this religious church, this very religious church that was in Texas. So the ATF felt like they had this like easy in, and what they described, like what the Branch Davidians were kind of known as, was like kind of weird polygamy, like weird Christian gun hoarding, like underage sex with adults, like weird shit that's happening there.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they are known for, like on the surface. But I'm going to talk about how, you know, it's not like those things aren't true, but there's also so much more to the Davidians that really kind of unjustifies that, like, really base, like, just, you know, clearly prejudiced and, like, really simplified version of these people, simplified intentionally to create a target that they could attack. But, like, when you know, we're going to go over all this stuff that I feel like clearly shows that, like, the Davidians were not a threat in the way that the government made them out to be. And they made them into this threat so they could justify this force, and because they thought it was going to be a win for them. But, like, when you look, I mean, we're going to talk about it, but it's like when you go over who the Davidians were, what they believe, what was happening there, that it was not going to be a win for them. They clearly just did not, like, their prejudice, like, clouded their fucking judgment, and they made, like, another really fucking bad move. Because these people are fucking idiots. Like, they're just the worst. Okay, so the Branch Davidians, and specifically the Seventh-day Advent Church, which is the church that the Branch Davidians came from, is basically like an apocalypse-based religion. They're really focused on the 7 seals, which is something that is mentioned in the book of Revelations. So the Seventh-day Advent Church. Now I'm going to go back. We're time traveling. Bloop, bloop, bloop. We're in the 1930s now. The Seventh-day Advent Church, Advent means second coming of Jesus, is the church that we're talking about. They're called the Davidians. The Davidians thought God visited his people with a living prophet. So, surprise, surprise, the prophet is this random guy in Southern California who's in this church. So in the 1930s, this prophet who was leading the church moved them from Southern California to Waco, which is interesting because, you know, we talked about this on like we did like a whole Hollywood Babylon episode on QTV, our YouTube show, that Hollywood in the 1910s and 20s in Southern California was really crazy and super, like, it was like Babylon vibes, and they like made a movie where they like constructed a set of Babylon. Like, I can see why super Christian, like, apocalypse churches would be like, oh, it's happening. Because there's literally people building Babylon and acting...
Huge Babylon. Huge.
Like, literally... Yeah, and they're acting like heathens, whatever that means to you. It's not a judgment. I love being a heathen.
Definitely.
Like, I'm also heathen. I identify as a heathen. But that's just... But that's just what was the situation. So they moved to Texas, Mount Carmel, in the 30s. The focus of their study was on the 7 seals, which is like, in a very base view, it's telling God's planned sequence of events leading to Judgment Day. And the meaning of them can only be explained by the Lamb of God, Messiah who comes during the last days. They believed Armageddon would come shortly after this initial prophet's death. This is the actual church thought that, like, the Armageddon was going to come after this, like, first prophet that moved them to California died, but it didn't.
Okay.
And then other prophets came to power, and it's actually, like, there's definitely, like, some power struggle dramas over, like, a couple generations and decades of the Branch Davidians and the Davidians in the Seventh-day Advent Church. But I'm going to skip it and kind of take us up to when David Koresh comes into power. At this time, which is the 80s, late 80s, mid to late 80s, well, like 82 to 86, is when, like, David Koresh, who is Vernon Howell at the time, that's when he comes to the Seventh-day Advent Church. He had been obsessed with the Seven Seals since he was, like, 10 years old. I feel like some people just really latch onto the Seven Seals and get obsessed with it.
Yeah.
It's clearly a thing. There's, like, there's this, like, really intense church about it that had, like, 85 people. Over generations. This is, like, a generational church. Like, many people were in this church. So, at the time that Vernon Howell came to the church, the acting prophet at the time was this woman named Lois Roden, who had assumed the role of the prophet when her husband, Benjamin Roden, died. They also, it's important to mention that that Lois and Benjamin had a son named George Roden, who at the time that Vernon Howell comes is an adult. Lois, who was in her 60s, and Vernon Howell, who was in his 20s, they developed, like, a sexual relationship. There was even a point in time where they thought that he had gotten her pregnant.
Oh.
And then, weirdly, like, obviously she wasn't pregnant, and then they kind of, like, acted like it was a miscarriage, and it was really weird. Anyways, so she died, and then there was a power struggle between Vernon Howell and George Roden, the son. There actually was, like, a split, and that's kind of how then David Koresh's people became known as the Branch Davidians, because they branched off from the Davidian church.
Oh.
George Roden kind of, this is, like, actual, like, a schism. But George Roden took over Mount Carmel and was like, it's mine, I'm the leader. He was kind of a dick, honestly. Like, you can see lots of footage of him. You know, there's a lot of documentaries about Waco. And there's footage of him, and he's just kind of an asshole, you can tell. Mm-hmm. So Vernon, you know, future David Koresh at the time, Vernon, and his followers, because he was really popular in the church, so when he left, a lot of people left with him. They were, like, literally living in, like, tents and shit, like, in the woods in Texas, because they didn't have anywhere to live. That was their home. And then David Koresh, or Vernon Howell at the time, like, heroically kind of, like, reclaims Mount Carmel from this guy.
He's a Leo.
David Koresh?
Yeah, he's a Leo.
Wow, another reason he would think he's, like, the Lion of Judah or whatever, and doing these, like, hero moment things. Yes. So there's this weird kind of, like, siege. Like, Vernon Howell, like, kind of does, like, this siege on Mount Carmel, like, with some people, and they have, like, handguns and maybe, like, slightly bigger guns. Whoa. They kind of, like, when I'm researching, they, like, name the, you know, .28 or whatever. I don't really know what that means. But they had different types of guns that they were, like, you know, going to get Mount Carmel back with.
Wow.
And basically it kind of worked. And he got Mount Carmel back. And eventually, and I think pretty shortly after, George Roden actually had to go to jail because he murdered somebody in an unrelated scuffle. So, fuck that guy. He's an asshole. But now at this point, Vernon Howell is now the leader and prophet of the Branch Davidians, and they are at Mount Carmel. And this is, like, probably 1988, 1989.
Okay.
So in terms of the followers of the religion, it's not, like, cult vibes.
Okay.
Like, I think a lot of people call it a cult because they're, like, intensely religious. But in my mind, a cult is something that, like, people are kind of tricked into coming to and staying at, and the leader is like, has these nefarious purposes and is manipulative and blah, blah, blah. But, like, these were literally just, like, a bunch of people who were, like, super obsessed with the Seven Seals. People sought the church out because of their interest in the Seven Seals. And people came from other countries, like, to live at Mount Carmel because they were trying to find out information about the Seven Seals. And it's, like, people who were, like, former Harvard professors who would be, like, culturally, like, seen as, like, normal, intelligent people came to Mount Carmel of their own accord. It's not like they were maliciously recruited by a predatory cult leader. People chose to come to Waco because of their interest in the Seven Seals and knowing about the Branch Davidian sect and choosing to go there.
Right.
Additionally, like, different from Ruby Ridge, Waco was not, like, a white supremacist or white separatist thing. I mean, it was definitely, like, mostly white people, but there were black families, there was a lot of different races, there was racial diversity, like, living at Mount Carmel and practicing in the church. Like, I just feel like it's an important distinction because I think they get, you know, it obviously gets lumped together logically with Ruby Ridge, and being, like, you know, being murdered by the ATF and being, like, weird niche Christians, like, I get it. But the Davidians, like, weren't that vibe,
right.
You know, because white supremacists, like, and white, like, separatist is a vibe. The Davidians did not share that vibe.
Right.
They were, like, literally just, like, if you're here for the Seven Seals, we are here for you.
Okay.
So, in 1985, Vernon Howell has, like, a spiritual glow-up. He goes to Palestine to go to Jerusalem and has this, like, divine visitation. There's, like, he says, like, a chariot came down and angels took him up into the sky and he went beyond the constellation Orion and he saw civilizations that were so advanced and had, like, laser technology and shit, and he, like, saw God and stuff. And then he returned to Earth and had, like, a panoramic view of the entire Bible, like, and he could, like, interpret it and, like, understand it. And yet, like he had a stutter his whole life, and he comes back and he's like, I don't have a stutter anymore.
Okay.
And, like, he comes back and, like, people see him as, like, having gone through this, like, crazy transformation. And that's when he legally changes his name to David Koresh. Right. And Koresh is the biblical name for Cyrus the Messiah who freed the Jews from Babylonian captivity. Okay. So he is like, I am that bitch. I am David Koresh. Like, I am fucking David, and I am fucking Koresh. Like, I am that bitch. What's up?
Let that Leo light shine, David. Okay, go on.
Oh my God, literally, I can't believe. I'm so glad you said that because now I'm just like, this bitch. He really is Leo. So this guy is basically, like, beautiful minding the Bible and just, like, connecting all these dots in the Bible that hadn't been done before and just, like, being like, I don't know, have you seen that meme of, like, the lady that she's got, like, all these algorithm math things in front? Maybe that's actually not a good comparison. Okay. The beautiful mind one was the good comparison. He's literally, like, seeing images from the Bible and, like, picking shit out and putting it together. And it's like, he's acting, you know, this guy is, like, operating, I think, under the assumption that, like, there's coded messages in the Bible that he can decode because he's the Lion of Judah, and he's gonna, like, so he's just like, bam, 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 everything's connected, I'm a genius, and he's really obsessed with, like, the Psalms, and he's, like, esoteric. Honestly, I probably would, like, I would listen to one of his sermons and be like, all right, man.
Get it done.
I know, I'm just like, okay, I hear you. I'm listening. I mean, I read his fucking thing. We'll get into that at the end, though. Okay, so there, at Mount Carmel, studying, preaching, David Koresh. Also, David Koresh is, like, he's, like, hot. He's like a hot guy. He's like in his mid-20s. He's like not that old. He's not in his 30s. He's like mid-20s, mid to late 20s. He's like a super cool guy. He's got like a cool haircut.
Right.
Like he's got like this jawline and he like plays electric guitar and he's like, and it's like, he's like Jim Morrison-y vibes. He's just like channeling like the Bible and like just understanding everything so deeply and like singing about it on his guitar and like looking super cool. And like it's like cool church. Like they're like in a rock band. Like there's like a drummer on the stage and like they're like having shows of like, you know, David Koresh's like Christian. I would listen to the fuck out of David Koresh's music. I bet compared to Charles Manson, whose music is trash, bad, horrible. Fuck Charles Manson. Just gotta say it. We hate that guy. David Koresh probably made some fucking bops, and I would listen to them. I'm saying it.
So it's all.
Am I gonna get canceled for that?
No, I think it's okay. I mean, you know, so like these folks are just like they're rocking and rolling, they're fucking, they're doing the Bible thing. It's all fun and games, and the ATF is like mad about it.
I don't know how much they're fucking.
Oh, okay.
I don't know how much they're fucking because while it was like polyamorous for David. Like David had like a bunch of wives because he thinks he's supposed, and that is the sketchy part of this, is like David was having sexual relations with teenage girls. In the way that he's obviously got all these crazy ways to justify it, but that is the facts. He was definitely having sexual relationships and impregnating teenage girls who were there with their parents and families, and his whole thing was like he is like needing to procreate these 24 elders that are going to be on the thing or whatever, and the moms have to be virgins. But but in their religion, their beliefs, they're supposed to be like celibate. Like they're supposed to like not be engaging in the carnal stuff. But then David is like, but I have to I have to like procreate the elders.
He had to bite the bullet, huh?
So there's
poor David.
Oh my god.
You had to take one for the team with that, huh? Alrighty then.
I know. I mean, yeah, that part is super sketchy and horrible. And, you know, we'll never know how those girls felt about it because they all were fucking murdered by the government. So that is what happened. That's what happening. They're not like a weird, like they're obviously doing weird sex stuff, but they're not like, it's not, because, you know, it's like in the 80s, you know, they had like the Bhagwan and the fucking Pacific Northwest, and they had like that crazy sex cult kind of situation.
That's what I was thinking of. I just kind of thought the Branch Davidians were doing the same thing, but no. Okay, good to know.
It was not. It was different than that. They're like, we don't watch TV. We don't eat sugar. We're literally just preaching and vibing. They are living a countercultural life. They don't watch TV. They don't eat junk food. They're deeply spiritual and practicing their religion every day. Their leader has a cool mullet. He had this wild religious experience. He had, like, reclaimed Mount Carmel from this evil bad guy. Like, he's totally epic. He has many wives because it's part of his prophecy. But people love David Koresh. The part about, like, him having sex with teenage girls was a major part of the ATF's reasoning and warranted, like, on the warrant, 2/3 of their initial raid warrant was statutory rape charges. But that's not what your agency does. You're alcohol, tobacco, firearms, IRS cops. They just really didn't have enough to get in there. So they had to use this statutory rape stuff because they didn't have enough reason under what's actually their jurisdiction to get in there. Anyways, I'll get into that in 1 second, because one other thing I want to mention is that how are they funding this? Well, David Koresh is selling guns. at gun shows. He is a gun dealer.
That's his job.
This is his job. This is like the second major on paper reason that the ATF is deciding to go in after the Davidians. This is like their second, like, oh, we're going after him because he's fucking teenagers and because he's hoarding guns, and we're gonna get him. We're gonna get the bad guy. So they say David Koresh is stockpiling weapons. The counter argument to this is that he has like a gun business, and that's just his inventory for his gun sales, which he's doing all the time to make money for the compound. Okay, so I just want to get back into and nail this point home that the ATF inherently, because it's a government agency, has an agenda of legitimizing themselves as an agency. That's just like baseline what government agencies do in their operations, is like legitimize themselves.
They need a good...
It's like, okay...
kill or whatever you want to call it. Like they need to get this guy and make a good... Okay.
Yeah. They gotta keep... But I'm saying all government agencies have to do this. All government agencies constantly have to prove and reprove that they deserve their funding.
Right, okay.
Because the funding is how they get their salaries and money for whatever shit they buy. Drones, I don't know. All government agencies have to play this game. It's one of the reasons that the government fucking sucks. Because, like, these, because it's like, okay, if you want to create the FBI to save children that are kidnapped, like, okay, cool, go ahead. But they would have very few jobs to do. It's like you can't fund.
That's true.
We talked about this on the COINTELPRO thing. Like they have to do a bunch of other stuff to like legitimize their agency so they can get money because it's capitalism.
It's true, right?
Like it's just this weird money flow thing. So it's like all government agencies operate not like waiting until they're needed, but they create opportunities to be needed because they literally have to. It's just like another strange way that our government dysfunctions because this is so dysfunctional. That's such a weird fucking way. It's like you're just literally creating busy work for yourself because you're supposed to exist. That is so fucking stupid. And that is the thing about so many people have to do that in capitalism. Like, if you work an office job, you are spending 90% of your day trying to figure out different things to do on the internet. Because we all just have to justify the hours we put in order to, like, get our 48 hours. It's like, what if you were just outside reading a book, man?
Man.
But you can't do that because we live in fucking capitalism and everything's stupid.
Right.
Okay, so to go back to Ruby Ridge, the ATF is seemingly trying to punish this potential informant for refusing to testify and become an informant about the Aryan Nation. But they play it off as an illegal gun thing, when clearly it's retaliation for not providing them with information. And the initial intention of the charge, the illegal gun charge, like, Randy Weaver thought it was a sting. Like, bro, I think I agree with you. Because the ATF and the FBI are in cahoots with each other. Yeah. So it's like the FBI, the information collectors, they want to get information from this guy. Hey, ATF, do this thing for me. Say this guy was trying to sell you this thing. And, like, then there's our in. That's it. Right. Anyways, that is speculation. Which I will acknowledge because I want to separate it from the rest of the stuff we're talking about, which is like very, very proven. That tidbit is a speculation. Okay, so then that became this whole fiasco where they are murderers, total assholes. So now they are in a position where they have to like extra play this game and they have to do it like now, especially because everything operates in like fiscal years, so this is like 6 months later. So they have to, like, prove their legitimacy, prove their effectiveness, prove they're needed, prove these illegal guns are such a threat and such a problem, and they're so dangerous. Like, nobody at Ruby Ridge, like, they fucking left. Those people weren't gonna, like, come to town and kill anybody. Like, they were in the woods trying to hunt and wanting to protect themselves from the government who fucking came and raided their cabin.
And they were in retreat.
Like,
right.
Yo. So then, here is this golden goose, this weird child sex Christian cult, like, charismatic cult leader looking guy with his guns and his teenage brides. Even though that is, while true, still a gross miscalculation of how to represent this group of people and their intentions, and specifically their danger levels. Like, these are all literally, like, fucking buzzwords to freak people out, and it's not any fucking logic or information. And especially when you think about Ruby Ridge, like, they spent a long time doing reconnaissance on that one family and one guy with two other adults living in the woods. Mm-hmm. They spent, like, over a year researching them before they raided. And Waco, they just fucking went in. Like, they did not do the research. That's what I think. They did not do the research. But they got their fucking warrant together.
Wow.
David Koresh, before I get into the warrant, David Koresh had learned that the ATF wanted to investigate him at the compound. And he was literally like, come on by. You are invited. My doors are open. Come look around. But they didn't do that. Like, they concocted some bullshit warrants in order to conduct this raid that killed 9 people died. And I'm not, like, here to defend David Koresh, obviously. I'm just reporting the story of his life. I do not think he was a cult leader. I do think he had teenage brides. But there's 84 or more other fucking people that live in this compound. He is one of a lot of fucking people. And it's a whole community of people, okay? There's kids, families, moms, sisters. There's so many fucking people besides David Koresh, and they just went in fucking shooting. Because why? I don't fucking know. But it's just like, what's wrong with you fucking morons? Like, there's so many other people here. And you just are not even seeing their existence at all. Because all you're seeing is, like, a gotcha moment for you and your fucking government department to, like, cover up this fucking fiasco. Anyways, I just don't like that. Right. I mean, what they did, like psychological warfare on these people. You know, between the raid and the fire. What they did, it's insane. It's like David Koresh, you know, a lot of people could have a lot of valid reasons to, like, hate that guy and think he deserved death or whatever. But he was, like, there was 85 plus other fucking people there that did not fucking do anything. They were literally just like, we want to solve this religious puzzle. This is a religious puzzle that haunts me. I also am haunted by puzzles. I kind of get it. I'm not, like, a Christian, but I'm like, yo, you want to solve your puzzle? I feel you, man. Go solve your puzzle or whatever. And all those people just got fucking murdered because of, like, the FBI zooming, like, narrowing in on one fucking guy. So
did they want to see his arsenal? Did they want to see his guns? What did the ATF originally contact David? What did they want?
I guess they probably wanted to see the guns. The warrant that they put together was a super rushed, prejudiced, and inflammatory document. And it was sloppy. These are things that, in the congressional hearings when they talk about it, this is something that people were testifying, that is, you know, these other professionals, they were saying this warrant was sloppy, and it was clear that they were in a hurry to make a big splash with something inflammatory. Okay, so February 28th, 1993? Yes. This is when the initial raid happens. The beginning of the horrible, horrible bad times at Waco. The raid happens at 4:20 in the morning, which we know is a tactic. We talked about it on COINTELPRO. They use this tactic against the Black Panthers. That time of night specifically is extremely disorienting again with the psychological warfare. Side note, I'm just interested in seeing that number because of how David Koresh was predicting the 4 and 20 elders, and I don't know. I'm just interested in that side
puzzle.
note. But practically, the reason was not because of David Koresh's weird religious views, but because it's a specifically disorienting time of night.
Yes.
They're raiding with guns, knocking in the doors, which is blowing my mind. I'm like, y'all are trying to say that these people are gun-hoarding religious fanatics, and you're just going in there, knocking the door. What the fuck do you think is going to happen?
It's bizarre.
Well, the Davidians fucking shot them. They got in a firefight. It lasted 2 fucking hours. 2 hours of shooting. And there's tons of kids there. And there's 2 hours of shooting between the Davidians and the government. The ATF agents specifically. At this day is ATF only. So, 4 U.S. Marshals died. 5 Davidians died. During the 2-hour shoot-off, there's 911 recordings of one of the Davidians calling 911, screaming on the phone, saying, call it off, there's women and children inside. But the cops, it wasn't them. It wasn't even the cops. The 911 couldn't communicate with the ATF because the ATF didn't set up a way to do that, first of all. Second of all, they're a fucking government agency. The 911 people can't, call you up. They can't, get on the scanner. They're not on the police scanner. They're the fucking ATF. It's a different thing. So this guy is, on the phone with 911, begging for help. Thank God he did that, so there's recordings of it. Because that is something that did not get destroyed. Right. So much of the evidence in this also was destroyed. But this 911 recording, you can hear
awful.
It. And
I listened to that recording. It's hard to listen to.
It's horrible. Yeah. I had, one of the big, the Waco movie I liked the best that I watched, which I rewatched this week, was the one called Rules of Engagement, which is on, Bezos Land streaming, or you can, rent it on YouTube. But yeah, that part of the movie where, they're showing footage of the raid with a 911 call over it. It's it's extremely upsetting. I had to take a break.
Yeah, I had to take a break in it too. It's
very upsetting.
And it's a very upsetting thing to hear because it really is just this person who, like you said, is trying to figure out this puzzle that they're interested in Revelations, and everything that the ATF is fronting, saying that they're going in for. One of the primary things saying statutory rape, which, like you said, the ATF wouldn't cover anyway, and this wouldn't be how you handle that. You start a shootout. That's not generally how you protect victims.
While the kids are in the fucking house?
Right.
You care about those girls that are you think David Koresh is abusing children, so you're gonna shoot into the building where the children are?
And this man...
Okay, I kind of am seeing through your story. There's some holes in your fucking story.
And there's some holes in your story, and this man who's on this 911 call... everything that the ATF is fronting that they want to do, there's illegal weapons, there's this child, rape stuff that's going on. I just want to point out that when you're listening to this 911 call, this man may not own a gun or have had sex ever in his life. This may not, the man on the phone who's call them off, make this stop, truly is just this person who's about to be burned alive by the U.S. government. And it's chilling. Anyway.
Yeah, it is. It is. So after 2 hours of gunfire, there was a ceasefire. 6 hours after the ceasefire, a Davidian was returning to the compound from work, and the ATF shot him in the back 5 times and in the head, and he fucking died.
Oh my God.
So that was the sixth person that died that day. 6 hours after the gunfire had stopped. This guy's coming home from work and they just shoot him fucking dead while he's trying to walk into the house.
Wow. I mean, we're not talking about people who are scared here. We're talking about people who have a vendetta. We're talking about very angry people.
I know. And this is like, that guy wasn't even fucking there. That guy wasn't even there during the raid. He was literally like coming home. And they're just like, dead, bye. It makes no sense to me. Like, I do not understand.
It's just warfare. It's like they created this
except
war.
if you're coming, yes. And all these agents are coming from a scenario where they're thinking they're this, like, untouchable, they can do whatever they want. No, like, can't get fired, can't get charged. Right. Can't get charged if you're in the line of duty.
And they know this.
So I guess you can just fucking shoot people
at this
dead.
Point, because that was said at Ruby Ridge 6 months earlier, a judge says,
6
I
months
can't
ago.
do this.
Well, you know, I couldn't say, I don't know what the timeline of court cases were, so that, you know, realistically could have happened after. But it's still, I mean, that's not the only example. Okay. There's no way that's the only example. No, for sure. You know?
All right. So now there's a shootout. They shot this guy in the back. What happens next?
Well, then there's this. Then that's the beginning of the 51-day basically standoff. There was a lot. I mean, that's the beginning. This is the beginning, and then there is an end, and there's a lot of stuff that happens. And so,
is David Koresh telling them they can't come in and look at the guns? How's?
At this point, yeah, they're not invited in anymore. Like, at this point, like, it's on. They are, But
at one point, he had said...
David Koresh is not inviting them in
come
anymore.
in and look.
Yeah, before he had been like, come on
like
in.
Like a rock.
Now it is not that, obviously.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Yes. Wow. What you just said is fucking
exactly
crazy,
what the United States military did with Iraq and what they told us. They
tested it out.
Among other things, I think, are being tested here. On top of it, also seems like in this story, there's like you're saying, there's so much sloppiness. There's also this enormous lack of control. As much as the government's exerting its force, it seems this is a very sloppy, shitty operation. This is not stealth. Right.
Oh yeah. This is the fucking 90s as shit.
This is the 90s.
This is 90s as shit. Are you fucking joking me? How are you guys doing this? Because it's the fucking 90s.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so for some reason, because the government can make anything seem like a gray area, there are conflicting reports over who shot first, which makes no sense to me. It's obviously the ATF that shot first and shot way more. The Davidians were like a peaceful... They weren't trying to like kill people for fun. Unlike anyone who gets a job in law enforcement who is trying to kill people for fun.
Just think about, put yourself in the position of your job is, I'm a gun dealer. So, I mean, like, put yourself in that position and then ask yourself if you shoot people when they come to the door. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, no, sounds like that would kind of ruin your job. I don't think they're trying to... there's no fucking reason. Why would these people who were trying to work with the government...
Yeah.
It doesn't make fucking sense because it didn't fucking happen like that. That's what the thing. It's crazy to be like... that these things are called conspiracies when it's like, bitch, what the fuck makes sense to you? This is what makes sense to me logically. If you fucking just think about it and think about who it was, why would they act like that? There's no fucking reason. Why would the government act like that? Let me count the ways You know? Limitless. Oh, God. Ah, okay. So, guess what? Tons of evidence
No
goes
way!
missing. No, I
can't
know.
believe
Can you
it.
believe it? So, because this was being filmed. Like, people were filming it. I don't know, like, who or why, but, like, there was videotape of the initial shots of the raid, and that went missing.
Whoa.
So there's like, so that's like quote unquote like proof that could have proven it. There's a photo that shows the front door of the church of the compound after the raid. All of the bullet holes are going inward. Okay. None of the bullet holes are coming out, and the fucking door went missing.
I remember this. That's right. That really heavy, like, door. Right.
You lost a door? You lost a metal door? I'm sorry.
That's right.
I'm sorry. How?
Oh, that girl down in evidence.
How
I
did
swear
you do that?
She's so scatterbrains.
Yeah, they quote unquote lost the door. Like, what the fuck? Come on. Okay. Other cool things. ATF didn't fill out any reports the day of the raid.
Wow.
No, didn't fill them out. Also, they hid pieces of evidence that they felt would exonerate the Davidians because they said it conflicted with the prosecution.
Oh, which that's like, you can't have that. You can't have things that conflict with the prosecution. I feel like I don't understand what a courtroom is.
Yeah, they're like...
I mean, if I can't say things that conflict with the prosecution.
I'm just like, this is, and especially because it's like, you know, the FBI is who investigates shit like this. So it's like, oh, how convenient. Mm-hmm. You know, I don't know. How convenient, like, you know, I don't know, whatever. Okay, so the ATF caused this initial disaster through this raid. Then the FBI steps in and kind of like takes over. They're like trying to do the quote unquote negotiations. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm sure they were calling it a hostage situation at the time. They love calling stuff hostage situations, even though those people are there willingly and probably hiding from the fucking government with guns that's outside their door. Right. Okay, so there's 51 days. Now, from the raid to the fire, there's 51 days. In this time, the FBI provides the Davidians with video cameras to film inside the compound. Obviously, they thought they were going to get footage of some, like, crazy shit, but the Davidians wound up filming basically a ton of footage of the truth, which is that they're human beings with tons of children and people trapped inside a compound because the government is shooting at them. And, you know, there's footage of the wife who lost her husband talking about him. And it's like, yeah, that's not what the FBI wants. The FBI doesn't want humanizing real footage that makes them look like assholes. So obviously they didn't, like, you know, they didn't send that to the news stations. Luckily it is accessible, and it is, you know, there's footage is used in different documentaries, but like they weren't giving it to the news outlets at the time.
Just to think of what the FBI, I mean, like it puts this spin on it for me, because I'm thinking like, so you really did genuinely believe that if you gave these people a camera, they'd do some freaky shit on it, you know? Or like you said, I think maybe that they would just slip up, but that didn't happen. So it's so interesting, but go ahead. So they gave them cameras. Yeah. They're filming all of this in there. It's fascinating.
I know. I'm just like, what did you guys didn't research these people at all. They even had an undercover agent in the Davidians. And when this guy is testifying at the congressional hearing, the dude is like on the verge of tears. Because it's like, he knew these people and he was like, this makes no sense to me. You know, all cops, fuck them all. Some of them, I think, did have regret over this. and
Right.
expressed remorse over it. You know, they shouldn't have been fucking cops in the first place, but like, you know, this guy who was an undercover agent, yeah, it was like he was clearly upset. Like, these were people. They, like, weren't bad people. They're just fucking chilling. Like, there's so many people on this compound that are just, like,
Right.
trying to vibe and learn about solve their
And
little
live a
puzzle.
live a different life, live an intentional kind of life. Also, they also wanted out of Babylon, quote unquote, whether they said it like that or not. I mean, that's right. So, yeah.
They did. Yes, and you're totally right. It's like that is another, like, connection. You know, people are like, our society's great. How dare you want to leave? Okay, so the FBI and the ATF are using, like, legit psychological warfare tactics. Interesting to do this on people they believe are unstable with a ton of guns, but okay. They have loud music playing, like, very, very, very loud music playing at the commune around the clock in a really chaotic way. Like, there's footage of this, and it's, like, it's just like they're making chaos soundscapes. Theoretically, I love chaos soundscapes. Knowing that it's used as psychological warfare against a bunch of children and people, don't love that. But yeah, when you hear it, because you can hear it in the recordings, it's like horse noises, train noises, boat noises, weird everything. It's like all overlaid on each other to just create this, like, chaotic mess. They played audio of rabbits being slaughtered, which is, like, a really scary sound. They would shine really bright lights into their windows in the nighttime, which is psychological warfare that they've used in citizens in other ways. And it's just, I mean, people theoretically, like, all those fireworks that were happening in cities, like, oh my God, are you kidding me? That was obviously a fucking crazy FBI thing. Like, sorry if I, like, shouldn't speculate like that, but when you think about tactics they've used in the past, which is to, like, disrupt people's sleep all the time. And then during, like, this huge political uprising in our country, there's, like, fireworks blasting off in all the cities where the fucking protests are happening all night, and that's never happened before. And then suddenly, almost simultaneously across all the cities they were happening in, they just stop. Come on, you guys make it easy. You're not even covering your tracks. Like, you're not even trying. Like,
and they're kind of like, we don't have to, though, because only a few of you know the tricks in our tool bag and know that we're not the good guys. You know, like, so we get to just, like, actually do this out in the open. It's, Wow.
Yeah. So they're doing all this psychological warfare, and again, I just am gonna bring up again, there's a ton of kids there. Like, a bunch. There's a ton of kids there. I think
it's something like 40 kids are, like, killed in the end or something. It's like a lot. It's like, it's a lot. Anyway, go ahead. Yeah.
It's a lot. Especially because he was intentionally procreating and having kids. There was babies there. Yes. So this is basically their way to continue attacking them without actually entering into or shooting into the home, which they're technically not allowed to do. They are doing other really fucked up stuff. They have tanks now. Why do they have tanks? Oh yeah, I haven't even mentioned this, that the ATF has, I wish I could have found the, like, ratio of agents to Davidians, but, like, they have, like, tons of tanks and, like, crazy war gear surrounding the compound at this point. So they are taking the tanks and rolling them over and over and over. They're driving over the graves that they had buried the people that died in the raid. Like, what the fuck? Like, the FBI is negotiating, quote unquote, peacefully negotiating with the Davidians to try and reach a way that they'll come out. And them are fucking driving their tanks over their graves. Yeah, I don't think we're coming to an agreement.
Right.
Dick. So, and they're like doing really petty shit, like ripping hedges out. There's video footage of all of this. There's video footage of all of this. Like, all of this stuff that I'm saying is like literally proven on videos. So, except for like that one thing I said earlier that I made a point to say was conjecture, because I wanted to separate it. Okay. People are wondering what's happening at Waco. There's protesters gathering outside Waco like they did at Ruby Ridge, but not people that I think would be politically aligned with the Davidians in all the ways, because it's a lot of like the racists that were there for Waco, because it's like a lot of the people that are into like Second Amendment rights are also
racist.
weird racists.
Okay, got it. Right.
So like Timothy Mcveigh.
Okay.
Yeah, they're like racists and white supremacists. And
So
Timothy
crazy.
McVeigh shows up, which is just crazy. But I mean, I guess I'll just drop the info that I think eventually we'll probably do an episode on the Oklahoma City bombing. But Timothy McVeigh is the Oklahoma City bomber, and he was protesting at Waco and distributing. This is more just like an Easter egg. It honestly has nothing to do with the fucking Davidians. Like, he just showed up to the function and was distributing this book that like is some weird right-wing white supremacist thing that also teaches you like
Turner
how to make
Diaries.
bombs.
Is
It's like
that
really weird.
Yes. Oh my God,
Yes.
that's so crazy.
Yes.
That is just an Easter egg. It has absolutely nothing to do with the Davidians, but that's crazy.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's
He's like,
a
some of my
crazy
people will be out
factoid.
here though, so.
And potentially.
I'm sure they were.
I mean, they
that's
probably
unfortunately
fucking
what's
were,
true.
unfortunately, because it's like the same. It's like the Alex Jones. Oh God. You know, maybe we'll talk about that later, but maybe not, because fuck that guy. Okay, so here's the thing. Everybody at Mount Carmel, you know, because there's, again, so many people there besides David Koresh, everybody was free to leave during the standoff, and some did. Theologically, it was opposed to their beliefs to leave in this moment. Because in this moment, they're really like, oh, it's on. Because they're literally like, we are predicting the moment that there will be like a standoff between the like Babylonian government, basically, and us. The Babylonian like authority. And like, here it is. Here you go. Here it is. I mean, it's like it affirms their beliefs. Like what you were saying earlier about Ruby Ridge. It's like, y'all are like
it's going down.
Their
This
beliefs,
is what they've been
you know?
trying to prepare for, you know, and here it is. Here's Babylon literally shooting at us. Yeah, absolutely. You can see why they doubled down on it. And they're like, wow, if I ever had doubt, I sure don't today. Like, that would be the moment of their highest faith, really.
Yes.
Thanks, ATF.
Despite that, though, yeah, you're right. But despite that, some people
absolutely.
did leave. I mean, it's scary as fuck.
either
I can't
way,
really blame people.
I don't blame
like,
people.
I'm sure in a group of that size, there's some
Right.
people that are just,
Right.
like, kind of there.
True.
So, some people left, and it's, like, elderly women in, like, their 70s who, like, clearly were not, like, shooting ATF agents. Like, everybody that left was immediately put in jail.
What?
Yeah.
Why am I surprised?
They're just like,
I'm not really
thanks, bye.
surprised. You can't trust these people. You can't trust the FBI and the ATF.
not.
Okay, go ahead. I'm not surprised.
No. So the FBI, like, I'm kind of just like, this is not necessarily like in order. All of this stuff is just what was happening over the 51 days. The Davidians wanted to talk to the press. They wanted to get their story out there and tell people their side. The FBI prevented the Davidians from contacting the press during their negotiations. The Davidians, like, hung huge banners from their windows begging the press to contact them, but the press, by and large,
I saw that.
did not
You can see
do
some
that.
amazing images of that on Google. Yeah, sorry, go ahead. Yeah,
Yeah, you can just Google it. It'll come up. I don't want to say, like, there's definitely, like, some reporters that I think, like, were there for the Davidians. And, like, there's, like, this one guy, I don't remember his name, but he's, like, in the congressional hearings, in the Rules of Engagement movie. You know, he's a journalist. He was, like, he's very vehemently, like, accusing the government of, like, misconduct and defensive of the Davidians, and he had talked to them and was talking directly to Davidians. So it's not like there was nobody. There was basically, like, 3 guys that, like, weren't the FBI that were trying to step in and, like, negotiate. Like, religious scholars, this one reporter. They were trying to be like, no, like, seriously, like, let us help you. Like, you guys are obviously not communicating. I mean, you're trying to negotiate with a strongly religious sect, and you're desecrating the people they just buried.
You're
like,
not doing it
come
right.
on. What are you fucking doing? Like, again, it's just very transparent. But again, a lot of agents, which so many cops do this shit, operate under a motivation of revenge. And they wanted revenge against the ATF agents they killed. I mean, when you kill a cop, it's like, you know, you're gonna get killed by a cop. Like, you know, the cops are gonna want to fucking murder you. Like, cops feel very justified in murdering and killing people they think are cop killers, you know? It's like, they get, like, so vigilante about it. Despite the fact that they, like, literally work for a government that's supposed to have, like, a whole legal system where you, like, go through a court and there's, like, tons of situations where people are, like, talking about what happened. And they're like, nope, we're just gonna shoot you and kill you and run over the bodies. So when a bunch of people left and were taken to jail, there's reports of, like, ATF agents saying things like, I hope you said goodbye. Like, I hope you gave your final goodbye kind of shit. Like, they wanted to kill all these people. No, I mean, they were just like, we're going to kill all your friends. Like, as they're leaving, they're just like, hope you said goodbye. Okay, there's a moment where so David Koresh is like, okay, I'll come out, because mainly the ATF wants David Koresh, obviously. He's like, I'll come out if you play this tape I made to the American people.
Oh.
So he somehow did get this, like, tape he made nationally aired. So the FBI did that.
Wow.
And then the next day he was like, okay, actually God told me I'm not supposed to come out yet.
Okay.
So that kind of ramped up, like, FBI and ATF frustration, because they thought they had this moment of him coming out. But then it's like, but you're clearly totally misunderstanding these people, because it's like, this guy is gonna listen to God over you. And he feels that he got a message from God to not come out. So, like, he's not gonna come out.
Right.
You know? Eventually, after that, there was a breakthrough in negotiations. This happens about a week and a half before the fire. David Koresh says he got a message from God that it was finally time for him to write down his interpretations of the Bible, when before God had told him not to. And he was like, I'm going to write this. And that becomes his decoded message of the 7 seals of the book of Revelation. That's the book he was working on. He's like, I just got to write this book and then I'll come out. So he started the book. I think the ATF and the FBI are like, okay, we are done with negotiations on April 19th. Okay. I would guess, like, maybe it was just hard for them to justify keeping staff out there and using all these resources when there was, like, no... I mean, at this point, there actually was an end in sight. It's speculated that David Koresh probably could have finished this book based on what he was able to write in the week and a half, that he probably would have finished this book in, like, 2 or 3 more weeks. Okay. And then, you know, come out. But... they were like, fuck that. On April 19th, 1993, the ATF just fucking burned it down. Wow. Which, I'm going to go through all the evidence that proves this. But that's the day that the compound burned down. And astoundingly to me, historically, it's really questioned as to whether or not the ATF started this fire, which makes no fucking sense to me when you look at the evidence. But even when I was looking at articles from recently, the last 5 or 10 years, you know, like, because the 25th anniversary was in 2018.
Right.
So there's a lot of, like, Waco. And in those articles, I mean, I just would stop reading immediately because they're like, while the ATF did not start this fire. And I'm just like, yes, they did. Of course they did. And I'm like, we're going to go through it. It is all of this stuff that I'm going to bring up is basically what the movie Rules of Engagement goes over. That movie is just basically footage of the congressional hearings. Which I love. I loved watching it, as frustrating as it was. So it's just wild to me because there's so much proof that the ATF did start this fire, but it was never proven legally, because how are you going to prove it legally? How are you going to prove to the law enforcement? Like, they're not going to let you, you know, they're the law enforcement. They're the ones that really decide, and they're not going to tattle on themselves, you know? So this was like, it's kind of like it's just really kind of hopeless, like, to try and go after law enforcement because they're just not, they're going to win. That's why it doesn't work. That's why law enforcement shouldn't exist, because it's just too OP. It's overpowered.
Yeah. How can it possibly work like that? You have one team of people who can do whatever they want, and you've had judges say that.
It doesn't work.
So it can't possibly work.
Yeah, it's not working. It's not working, and it's never fucking worked. It didn't work in 1880. It doesn't work today. It's not working.
Hey guys, it's not working.
Hello. But still, I feel like that's like a thing that like reporters have to say is like allegedly, or like blah, blah, blah. But it's like, no, like, look at the proof. Okay. So here we go. The ATF had modified their tanks, to change the way, I mean, okay, obviously I don't understand how tanks work, but basically the part of the tank that shoots, they modified it so that it had the capacity to make literal fireballs. Whoa. And that's what they did.
Okay.
And it's what started the fire. The ATF had equipped their tanks with these modified gun things so that they would make fireballs. And there is video evidence of the fireballs, which I'm going to get into.
Okay.
Again, this is a place filled with babies. So what they do is they start this assault that winds up with burning it all down and murdering all of them. It starts with gassing them. Again, there's a ton of fucking babies in there. Also, the FBI knew, there's part of the video, there's somebody in the congressional hearing very, very emotionally sharing this information, that the FBI knew that the gas masks that the Davidians had on their compound didn't fit children. They knew that there was no way that the children in the compound would be able to defend themselves from the gas attack that they were pumping in there. Because they had done reconnaissance. They knew, like, the Davidian... They knew the Davidians... They knew, like, some layout of the compound. And they knew, like, some of the stuff that they had. And they knew that the Davidians did have gas masks. Maybe that was their weird justification for using this, like, really, really, really strong, horrible chemical, like, not, it's gassing people. And, like, knowingly gassing people that there's tons of children in there that cannot protect themselves because the equipment doesn't fit on their face. So they're saying this is to, like, smoke them out.
Wow.
But it's like, it's a really, really deadly gas. And even barring its deadliness, it's like an extremely painful, like war crime level
Right.
gas that they're using on like toddlers. Like, I don't know if I am getting gassed and crippling over with pain. I don't know how cognitively I'm going to be able to like find an exit, you
Yeah.
know?
Oh, man.
So they're telling the Davidians to exit the building. There's like, you know, that they're using the giant PA speakers to try and getting them to exit. While this is happening, and there's video footage of this, the tanks are going around the compound and creating massive holes in the structure in the wall. They create holes strategically to maximize airflow in a way that would allow the fire to really ignite and spread super rapidly. They were creating like a convection oven
Right.
inside the building via these holes that they were making that day that there's video evidence of them making.
Wow. And yet, it's continued to be reported in mainstream media that they didn't start this fire 25 years later.
Yeah, and it's like, not only did you start it, you premeditatively, strategically started it.
Because
Okay, side note, Janet Reno is the Attorney General of the United States at this time. It's the Clinton administration. She's new. It's new. She is supposed to be the person in D.C. You know, they're like, oh, I got to talk to Washington. She's the one that's supposed to be making the decisions about use of force, et cetera, et cetera. Conveniently, during this exact moment, like where this conflict is escalating and they're not coming out and they're like about to start the fire, she goes and gives a speech in Baltimore, which makes her unreachable because she's on stage giving a speech. She was later asked why she didn't cancel the speech, and she said it was because she didn't want to draw attention and make it look suspicious, like it would tip the Davidians off. Like any of the fucking Davidians with their no TVs are gonna know and put together that Janet Reno canceled a speech like 2 hours ahead of time. How they would? There's no way that would affect the Davidians. There's no way.
Right.
There's no way. So, but you had told me another point about Janet Reno too.
Oh, well, she was known in Florida. She'd been a state's attorney in Miami, Florida for many years. I think 78 to 93. So she'd been doing that for a long time. And she was known for being, PBS gave her the label of being a crusader against alleged child abusers. That was their word for it. So she was known. She had invented, it's called the Miami method. And I think she's known to have invented it. But it's a way of interrogating children who have been through sexual assault. So this was telling her there's a bunch of, kids in here or whatever would be in her wheelhouse. She would really want to take action on that for sure. And I think, right.
Yeah, she would definitely want to be like, I'm Janet Reno and I save the children again.
Yes, yeah, that would definitely be her brand, I guess is the way we would put it today. And so, and she was brand new. She was the first woman state's attorney also, in the Clinton administration. And as actually, it's pointed out in an article that I read from the the World Socialist website. They're talking about Waco, and something that they mentioned is they're saying, Reno felt a need to demonstrate that she would be pretty merciless, partially because she was the first woman state's attorney. And they also brought up that the new Clinton administration in general, Clinton needed to separate himself from his image as a student protester against the Vietnam War. You know, like he was the president now. He had to get rid of that like hippie image. And so these things were going on in Washington, which I thought was interesting because we're like they would have been gotten into office in January and this is just April. Find all of that interesting. But yeah, she'd want to get them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's also just like it just shows even more how like calculated it is as like another fucking public image play.
Another politic.
Because it's like, yeah, and it's like, either way, if it was good or if it was bad, if it's good, she can take credit. Mm-hmm. If it's bad, she's like, oops, I was giving my speech. You couldn't reach me.
Like I said earlier, she's a cancer.
I hate her.
Cancer. Like that's.
Oh my God. I hate.
Very cancer.
I hate her, and I also hate, I haven't brought this up yet, how much I hate Chuck Schumer. And he was one of the senators or whatever, like, you know, investigating this after the fact. And he's just a stupid fuck. And he was such a piece of shit about this. And, like, literally, like, anytime somebody would be up there trying to, like, defend the Davidians and say that there was, like, too much force and that it was wrong, he would just be like, but didn't they have illegal guns? And like, you really believe that the FBI would do that? It's like, they fucking did it, Chuck, and you are so annoying. Wow. And he's just so, oh God. Yeah. I hate him. Hate him today. Hate him back then. I mean, the congressional hearings, it's fucking mind-blowing because you listen to these testimonies of FBI directors being like, we did not shoot first. We didn't shoot at all. We didn't start this fire. Like, they literally are like, this day, we put the gas in, but we didn't shoot anybody and we didn't start the fire. We were using gas to try and get them out. But there's literal video footage of the FBI tanks creating these holes and infrared footage of the sparks. And okay, so there's an independent verifier of this infrared footage. It's this company called Infraspection. CBS 60 Minutes hired this company to like verify the footage because they were like going to do like a news story on it. And they told CBS 60 Minutes that there was obviously on several occasions gunfire and automatic weapon discharged fire toward the building from the outer perimeter. But then they went on to say they didn't want to comment further than that because, this is what they said, it's a quote, due to the potentially sensitive nature of this material and the resulting negative repercussions to infraspection, we are choosing to decline any further comments surrounding this taped incident and our subsequent professional opinions regarding its viewing. And this led to 60 Minutes not sharing any of these findings publicly.
Okay.
Because they're literally just like, we are scared of the repercussions of us making this finding. So
very real.
We're not talking about it anymore.
Right. Wow.
This is in a letter. Like, this is a letter that is scanned and you can see, like, this is exactly what they said. Like, I feel like I have to go out of my way so many times to just be like, this is literally proof. This is, there's documents, there's evidence, there's video footage. Like, there's so much proof. We're not speculating.
Right.
Like, we're not, like, this is the evidence. And it's just like, it was so ignored because the FBI was just like, nope, no, we didn't.
Right, and then the media backs that up, and the courts uphold what everybody's doing, and the public, literally,
and everybody's afraid to say anything.
Anybody who would, you'd have to be a whistleblower. Now you can only tell the truth if you're like basically a criminal, and then meanwhile the public is like, yeah, but that baby fucker wouldn't come out. You know what I mean? Like he burned them all up.
That's literally what Chuck Schumer. Yeah. Chuck Schumer is like, that baby fucker wouldn't come out, so we set his house on fire. And I can't believe any of you think it was a bad decision. Right. You're horrible people. This guy. Child predator. There's 85 other people at the fucking compound, Chuck. Right. What about them? What about all those fucking kids? You care so much about the kids that David Koresh was abusing? So you set them on fire and killed them?
Which is why they have to say...
Make it make sense,
right,
Chuck.
which is why they have to say that he did
But
it.
then...
They have to say that this baby rapist wouldn't come out, and he was so concerned about himself that he burned everybody up. That has to be the story. If you tell people the real story, people are going to say, you know, I don't really like living in this country that way.
Yeah, they just prevent the nuance. It's like everything is like, nope, this is what happened. This is bad.
Right.
I don't know. So the government knows the law the best, and it breaks the law whenever it wants because nobody can enforce them. Theoretically, there are checks and balances, but we all see how that works out. Even journalists or like us as podcast hosts, I'm sure we're supposed to say stuff like allegedly, et cetera, for stuff that isn't like proven in a court of law. So this is one of those allegedly things that I'm about to say. After, you know, even though almost everything and so much evidence was destroyed in this insane fire, there is one instance where there's a body of a man, a Davidian. When they found his body, because the medical examiners, thank God, the medical examiners were not FBI or ATF. The medical examiners were local law enforcement connected that did like the autopsies on the Davidians. They autopsied every body. Okay. So there's one body of a Davidian. There's a chunk of the right side of his body missing. How would that happen from a fire? Like his shoulder and arm down to the torso is like missing in like a circular shape. He was wearing a red shirt that was still attached to his body, which was also burned. But like he was wearing a red shirt and he had this chunk of his body missing in this circular shape. There is like a photo of one of the ATF tanks that had jammed one of its tracks, like, which is the part of the tank that like goes around the wheels, you know, like the track that kind of like rotates around the thing. And there's a photo of the tank that has something red jammed into it, like red cloth. So there's reason to believe, allegedly or whatever, that this tank just ran over this person. Maybe this person was trying to fucking leave.
My God.
And the ATF just ran him over. And his body was found burned, but the fire happened after this.
Oh my God.
So obviously to me, it seems like the tank ran over this person and then left his body on the ground where it was then burned in the fire, allegedly. Right. So, okay. The FBI is gassing the Davidians. Instead of that making them come out, logically, they retreated inward to a kitchen storage room. There's one person that survived this. Maybe more than one, but like I'm thinking of one guy in particular who was like an eyewitness describing this happening. He is a Davidian. He says there's women and children, like they're trying to use like wet blankets to cover themselves to like try and prevent like the gas, and people are like, they're fucking dying. I mean, this gas is like literally deadly.
Right.
I'm just like, I don't understand why the FBI would think that this gas tactic would work. So I'm just like, this is speculation. Did they intentionally do this because they wanted them to be in a concentrated location? I don't know, but that's what happened. Okay. That is up to you, the listener, to decide, because that's not proof, that's just a speculation. But that's what happened, is like the Davidians went into this kitchen storage room. Like at this point, towards the last moments before the fire starts, they're pumping the compound full of this gas. And if they're not in like massive agonizing pain, they're dead. Like there's a lot of reason to think that like by the time the fire started, the only people alive, I think, would be like adults, not like elderly or children. I mean, you don't know. It's like impossible to know.
They made an oven and they cooked these people.
They strategically placed hold in the building so that these fires would start immediately. Okay. So, without spending a ton of time going into, like, detailed details, which are hard to describe without visuals, I think, there was intentional placements of flash fire and fireballs. There was more than one Davidian survivor, because 2 Davidian survivors say they saw fireballs.
Mm-hmm.
So, in addition to the holes that were strategically placed in the building by tanks, the fire erupted extremely quickly and spread extremely quickly. You can also see from aerial footage that there was fires started in 3 separate places while the Davidians were all crowded in one area of the compound, which was away from 2 of the 3 places where you can see fires from above. Additionally, there was one escape route that the Davidians could have taken from the storage room that they were hiding in, but there were people firing machine guns into the only exit. So it's like, if you try to exit, you're going to get shot by machine guns. And 27 Davidians died of bullet wounds. Chuck Schumer says, and there's definitely, like, people report that they think that these were, like, self-inflicted or inflicted on each other. Oh. But I'm just like, they were shooting into the compound. Right. Like, if they're just shooting machine guns into the compound in the direction of where they're all hiding, like, you know, we will never know. Right. But I would say there's reason to give the Davidians the benefit of the doubt that they weren't shooting each other.
Yes.
You know?
Right.
So then it burns down. There was no firefighting attempt on the compound. In fact, the ATF person who was like the decision maker on the scene prevented firefighters from accessing the compound.
Ambulances.
There were fire trucks rolling up trying to get to the building, and the ATF prevented their access. Additionally, the building was completely destroyed after the fire.
Oh.
The FBI, also, there's proof that they altered the crime scene. For example, they moved vehicles which destroyed trajectory evidence, in addition to just allowing the building to burn down to the point that it's completely destroyed.
Right.
So, more fucked up stuff. As soon as, like, the Davidians had a flagpole and there was a Star of David flag that they flew. As, like, at a point when the fire is really, really hot, you know, and burning, the flag came down. As soon as their flag came down, the ATF strung up their own flag and a Texas state flag as if to declare this a military victory.
Wow.
And the compound was completely burned down.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm just like, the image of that, I'm just like, what is wrong with you? You are disgusting. This is disgusting. Disgusting. It's absolutely horrible, inhumane. Totally murderous behavior.
So the ATF considered the Branch Davidians to be foreigners, and the ATF also considered themselves to be military, because technically ATF and Branch Davidians are all just civilians. They're all just citizens. Yeah. They're all just civilians. Like,
yeah, they're not
military.
They're definitely not military.
The ATF's definitely not military.
But they're using...
And the Branch Davidians are definitely not they're American citizens. So to use this kind of, like, military symbolism like you're talking about is incredibly sick. And I mean, the whole time you're talking about...
It's disgusting.
About these tanks, you know, that's the other aspect of our modern life. The ATF being, again... We have to reiterate, they're not military. They're just cops. They work for the Department of Justice. They're not military. Why do they have military tanks?
It just shows that this is part of the military. This is, you know, one of many parts where our police forces are becoming militarized.
Exactly.
Like, this is probably a really good example of the militarization of the police. Well, like, there's Where is any shred of proof that these guys needed fucking tanks?
Well, right. And, earlier when you're like, wow, things, things could get pretty wild in the 90s, when you said that, I was thinking, I wonder if it's because all the toys were new. These guys having military toys like this was pretty new. So they were able to dig into a toy box of these horrible, by toys, I mean, terrible, deadly, suffering-making weapons.
Oh my God.
But that was pretty new for cops, late 80s, early 90s.
You are totally fucking right, dude. And I'm now I'm just thinking, because we've been talking about doing episodes on the Bushes
Right.
too, and I'm just like,
Mm-hmm. Oh, it definitely, this all definitely all goes together here. So,
okay. So, the FBI classic didn't allow any independent examination of bullets, guns, etc. found on the compound, which is something that could potentially have exonerated the Davidians from shooting, from their accusations that the Davidians were shooting. So this is really a perfect example of how these agencies that are supposed to conduct checks and balances on each other, for example, the FBI and the ATF, actually work in tandem to make sure they could actively avoid accountability. It's just a terribly shady investigation. It's horrible. The FBI forces, like I said earlier, the local medical examiner was conducting all the autopsies. They were doing research, and the assistant to the medical examiner had gone and taken video footage at the compound because they were looking for information. When he was filming, he was asked to stop filming by an officer that was there. And, then they went to the medical examiner's office and were like, hey, so that tape, give it to us. And they were like, no. But then they pressured them into giving the tape over, and they were like, we're just going to review it for a day, and then we're totally going to give it back. And surprising nobody, they destroyed the tape. So, yeah.
Oh, wow.
They just...
Okay.
The local medical examiner was like, seriously, give us our tape back. We're going to start withholding information from you until we get our tape back. We need it. And they were like, okay, so actually, yeah, we lost the tape.
Dirty. It's just so dirty.
Yeah, I mean, it's horrible. And the congressional hearing, I mean, it's just a joke. It's offensive. They have Davidians come and testify. They have survivors come and testify. And it's like, why did you make them do that? This is obviously a joke. You guys aren't going to do anything. Why are you just forcing these people? Because it's all just a fucking game to them, and they don't care. And they're just yeah, just relive the most literally undeniably traumatic experience of your life in front of us on camera, just so that we can never do anything about it.
Right, and
do you mind?
Right, and kind of make fun of you in the process, and kind of and mock your, everything, your life, your beliefs, how you lived, everything. It's just
yes, sad. Exactly.
For nothing.
Janet Reno says she has absolutely no doubt at all that the Davidians set the fire. So I'm just fuck you guys. How can you say that? How can you look at the same stuff that I saw, that so many people have seen, that don't believe you, and still say that?
It. There's this other quote in this article from the World Socialist website that I think kind of speaks to that. Let me read it. It just says that and this was written actually April 26th, so not even about a week after this happened. And the World Socialist website wrote, at the time it was the International Workers Bulletin, and they wrote, "This is an obvious and enormous discrepancy between the scale of the force used against the Branch Davidians and the actual threat which this tiny religious group represented. So fearful is the ruling class of the explosive potential of the deep-rooted social antagonisms in America that it reacts with frenzied violence against any challenge, no matter how minor. It seems to drive home the message, thus perish enemies of the state. So like what they're saying is like, it was a big of like, this is what happens to you when you try to live in these ways that are outside of our system. And that is the way that at the time the International Workers Bulletin put it.
Yeah, and like, damn, nail on the fucking head.
Right.
And I'm so glad that you found that. And it's like, it's kind of validating to know that like there's people around the world that can like see what the government is doing to us.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Wow.
Yeah.
What a story.
Yeah. The media, of course, I mean, people, like, popular culture thinks of Waco as a suicide cult with a cult leader. Right, I haven't watched the Netflix show yet. Actually, now I kind of wish I had so I could comment on his portrayal. But, you know, when I had initially posted, like, in May that I was doing this research and it was originally going to be for QTV, we were going to do it together. And I got, you know, a lot of replies from people that were kind of like, you know, well, David Koresh was having sex with teenagers. And I'm just like, yeah, what about the other fucking 85 people that lived on this compound that fucking died? And what about those actual teenagers who died? Like, you know, I'm interested in, like, this person's interpretation of the Seven Seals because I like puzzles, but I'm not, like, vouching for David Koresh. And it's like, all, like, the media in their, you know, hyper focus on this one aspect of David Koresh is just a way to absolve the government of responsibility. Absolutely. Because it's like, why are you gonna really, what's gonna motivate? I mean, because I literally am like, people I think are like thinking that I'm like vouching for this potential like pedophile by even like talking about this, and I'm just like, that's fucking crazy. Like, no, I'm not. What are you talking about? Like, no, I'm not fucking doing that. Like, I'm talking about the fucking government, and I don't think this dude should have been fucking killed in a fire with all of his followers. I don't think any of this was warranted or justified, and I do think that, like, you know, even though, like, yeah, I don't think David Koresh should have been having fucking sex with teenagers. There's just a very specific motivation from the government to be against counterculture. And I would say this was a successful and functioning counterculture. Like, whether or not, like, you know, David Koresh was doing this fucked up stuff, like, this was a counterculture that existed and was self-sufficient, and they were living their lives, and they were living how they fucking wanted to in America. And the government was like, no, you're not. Right. I don't think so. Right. So the media, you know, just still is like complicit in this conspiracy to portray the Davidians as a suicide cult. I mean, all of it. It's just, you know, roped together. It's like they're going to put the seed of doubt in your mind over, like, why this dude is bad and, like, maybe deserve to die. And you're lumping everybody else there in with him when it's just like, those people weren't fucking doing that. Nobody else there was doing that. Right. So why the fuck did all these people die in a fucking fire? And why do you remember them all as part of this, like, sex-depraved suicide cult? That's not fair. That's not fair to these people. That's not fair to these fucking people who traveled to this country trying to, like, solve their cool Christian puzzle. Like, that's not fair. So fuck that. There's, like, so many more people than David Koresh that died.
So many other people besides David Koresh that died. And also, it's not, honestly, the one part about this that isn't counterculture is the fact that David Koresh was fucking teenage girls. Like, that's the only part of this story.
Oh, bitch! That's yes, literally.
Culture.
That's the most mainstream thing this guy was doing.
So, like, I don't, like, you know, so none of it makes sense, and none of it washes, none of it. And, like, they can propagandize us like this, and make it really difficult also for anyone to even come forward and say like, yeah, but him fucking teenagers isn't even why they were there. That's not even what this story is about. And those teenagers are dead. Somehow then gets pegged with this like, I guess you like baby fucking. Like, it's really like, it shows you how scrambled our brains are. I just want to say, shows you how scrambled our brains are.
I know. And it's like people are afraid to say opinions. I mean, I experienced that fear. I'm like afraid. I'm like very thoughtful with everything that we talk about on this show because I don't want to say anything that like could be taken out of context to like misrepresent me as a person and like how I feel because people love fucking doing that.
And and I'll say this too. Actually, at the time that he was like 93, the concept of the Seven Seals. Like, it kind of, there had been a really popular Hollywood movie with Demi Moore called The Seventh Sign. And she was breaking all the, and she was breaking all these, like, seals open. I can't remember the exact story now, but it had been really popular. And there was this idea that there was a guff where all the souls were, and you couldn't let the guff run out of souls, and she had to save it. And all, yeah. And, at the time, I mean...
Now I want to watch
At the time that I saw it, I really liked it. It was one of those films I was like, "Whoa, dude!" But I mean, I was like 16 or whatever, But at any rate, my point being, and Ingrid Bergman, in the 1950s,
I know,
very famously.
I should have watched that movie in preparation.
I have. It's been a long time, I should watch it again. It's super boring, I mean, but
I know. Oh my god,
right?
I know. Those movies are so slow, but I love slow movies, so maybe I'll watch that later. Because I'm interested. I mean, in researching this, I'm interested in the Seven Seals now. Like, dead ass. I am like, what the fuck are they?
I think I honestly think that it's been a part of, it's piqued people's interest in popular culture for some time. Ingrid Bergman made his film in the 50s, and he plays like chess with death or whatever. And so I almost kind of wonder too if there wasn't getting to be in the early 90s. I don't know. I'm just questioning and speculating. And it's people taking an interest in the Seven Seals because it's like it's not even that people have heard of it. Like when the first 4 seals are broken, those are when the 4 horses of the apocalypse come out, and then. So people know that, and then like the 5th seal, when it's broken, that releases the cries of the martyrs. So the martyrs are crying for the wrath, for God to bring his wrath. So that's the 5th. The 6th is like earthquakes and other cataclysmic events. So all of these things, like when all 7 seals get broken, supposedly, which only the lions of Judea can do, I guess, and David Koresh would have been this, I guess, was the idea. But when all of the seals are broken, the idea is that the apocalypse is on. But each seal brings on an aspect of the apocalypse. But the thing that I thought was really funny when I went deeper on this is number 7, the 7th seal. When you break it, it cues the 7 angelic trumpeters, and they each have a bowl of that wrath that the martyrs were crying for in Seal 5. So the trumpeters, they unleash their bowls of wrath on those who follow the Antichrist. And so there's plagues and all this kind of stuff. So like I feel like this is like the 7 seals are something that interests actually, they're very interesting for one thing. It's very interesting storytelling fodder. So you can certainly tell why people are interested in it. And I'm also just kind of wondering if there wasn't some kind of more people were like, hey, so what are those 7 seals about? Just because of Demi Moore. But anyway, right? And it's not that far fetched. I mean, in the sense that, I mean to say it's not that obscure. It might not be as obscure maybe as it first sounds.
Right.
When you start to hear what's in it, you're like, oh, I've heard these stories before. So that's what they were doing.
But that is true. Additionally, though, I will say, like, there was like a reason that people like felt that they had to go to David Koresh and this branch to learn about the 7 seals, because in the documentary, there's in the footage that the Davidians filmed, there's this young woman. She's asked, "Why did you come here?" And she says, I'm interested in the seven seals, and I tried to talk to my pastors, and I tried to talk to people and learn more about them, and they said no, and it was forbidden, and like, in it's like, it is public knowledge, but in a weird way, it's also kind of gate kept. And I don't know, I mean, David Koresh, I guess this is like the last thing I'll say directly related to David Koresh and Waco before, I mean, I really just kind of want to talk about Revelations and the Seven Seals for a while. But the last thing I'll say about David Koresh before I fully dive into, waxing poetic about the Seven Seals was like, David Koresh like weirdly predicted that he was going to die in a fire.
So wild.
And I'm not trying, it's wild that he did that. And I'm not trying to say that I think he is a messiah. And I'm definitely not fucking endorsing David Koresh. I do believe that people can be psychic. Mm-hmm. Who's to say that this person is not a psychic? He predicted how he was going to die. I mean, this is like, dear listener, if you're not into esoteric speculation, and you're listening now because I'm going for it. But like, this guy might have really had some fucking insight to the Seven Seals. And the document that he wrote, the text, like that God said that he could have wrote, that he wrote in the last, before the fire, it's called the Decoded Message of the Seven Seals of the Book of Revelation. And what he wrote is available to read. Like, if you go on Google Scholar and you just type in David Koresh Seven Seals, it comes up immediately. And I got it. And I read as much as I could before I was like, I do not understand this. I'm going to stop reading it. But, okay, is it crazy if I, like, read you the part from Revelations where they talk about the Seven Seals? Because I kind of want to read it to you.
I would love to hear the part in Revelations where they talk about the Seven Seals.
Let me sipping my water because we're reading scripture now. This is happening, okay? So this is John the Revelator in Revelation. This is the entire chapter 5. This is quoted in David Koresh's document. That's why I read it last night. So the preface, he's describing this like moment where like you're in the sky on this platform. There's like 24 chairs, or there's 4 and 20 chairs for the elders. And there's like this emerald chair for God or somebody, and somebody's sitting there. I don't know. I don't fucking get it. This shit is nonsense, honestly. And it's frustrating because I'm like, God, I want to make sense of this extremely esoteric nonsense that somebody wrote while they were probably tripping on mushrooms is actually something that a lot of people think about Revelations. But that's just a preface for some context. So here we go. This is Revelation 5. Oops. Okay. And I saw in the right hand of him that sat on the throne a book written within, and on the backside sealed with 7 seals. And I saw a strong angel proclaiming with a loud voice, "Who is worthy to open the book and to loose its seals?" And no man in heaven nor in earth, neither under the earth, was able to open the book, neither to look on it. And I wept much, because no man was found worthy to open and read the book, neither to look on it. And one of the elders said unto me, Weep not. Behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, hath prevailed to open the book, and to loose its 7 seals. And I beheld, and lo, in the midst of the throne and of the 4 beasts, and in the midst of the elders, stood a lamb as though it had been slain, having 7 horns and 7 eyes, which are the 7 spirits of God sent forth into all the earth. And he came and took the book out of the right hand of him that sat upon the throne. And when he had taken the book, the 4 beasts and 24 elders fell down before the Lamb, having every one of them harps and golden vials full of odors, which are the prayers of saints. And they sang a new song, saying, Thou art worthy to take the book, and to open its seals, for thou wast slain, and hast redeemed us to God by thy blood out of every kindred, and tongue, and people, and nation, and hast made us unto our God kings and priests, and we shall reign on the earth. And I beheld, and I heard the voice of many angels round about the throne, and the beasts and the elders. And the number of them was 10,000 times 10,000, and thousands, saying with a loud voice, Worthy is the Lamb that was slain to receive power and riches and wisdom and strength and honor and glory and blessing. And every creature that is in heaven and on the earth and under the earth, and such as are in the sea, and all that are in them, heard I saying, Blessing and honor and glory and power be unto him that sitteth upon the throne, and unto the Lamb forever and ever. And the 4 beasts said, Amen. And the 24 elders fell down and worshipped him that liveth forever and ever. Woo! Wow. So that's Revelation 5, which describes the book. I know, it's fucking crazy, and it just makes, what the fuck is the 7 scrolls? Like, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it, y'all. Because it's like, you know, you're like your research, you were like, no, I figured out what the 7 seals were. And I'm like, but what? Because I thought only the Lamb could open it and know. But, like, you're right. But, like, also, I thought only the Lamb could. It's so confusing.
Right.
So I really, really get why people got kind of fixated on this one part, you know?
Absolutely. Well, I think that because some, like, belief systems are saying that one, like, the first seal was actually broken, like, right before Jesus was murdered. You know, so, like, there's certain interpretations that say that also. So I feel like, you know, whatever the branch, we'll never know what the Branch Davidian, we'll never know what David Koresh was going to say.
I know. I'm just like, y'all motherfuckers couldn't have let David Koresh write this thing. God damn it. I want to read it so fucking bad.
I mean, you can't honestly, act like you're prophets, and you're like, you can't act like your religious leaders are not, that they don't have sex with teenagers. They do. Gandhi did it. I mean, come on, everybody.
Yes.
Let's try to keep our shit together. The Catholic Church. Like, you know, I'm not for it, but at the same time, like, you've been told to hold it against David Koresh, but not Gandhi. Let's think about that.
Yes. So. I would definitely say David Koresh is a better person than Gandhi.
I would agree with you 100%.
Absolutely.
We're going to be so popular on the internet.
And if I'm like, oh my God, I'm like that. If I get taken out of context and canceled for that, well, cancel me. Because David Koresh is better than Gandhi. All right. And I fucking hate Charles Manson.
Yeah. I'm behind you all the way.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I'm just so interested in it. It's just like, you could think about Revelations all day. This shit is crazy and it makes no sense.
No, it's crazy. It makes no sense. And we have it. It looks.
I was hanging out.
Go.
Well, I was just going to say, I was like hanging out with some people that know the depths of Christianity more than me. You know, I really think, because I was raised Christian and my family is all Catholic and I went to Episcopalian church and I'm like, I know the Bible. But then you hang out with people who were like in super church and you're like, oh, I don't know fucking shit about the Bible compared to you. Holy shit. Right. So I was asking these people last night about the 7 seals and stuff. And they told, like, the dude, like, there's, people think that the person that wrote Revelations was, like, literally tripping on mushrooms while he wrote it.
Yeah, sure. That makes sense.
Because he was on some island where you can find, like, a bunch of psychedelic mushrooms or something.
Fascinating.
I mean, I buy it. I'm just like, I wish I would see that on mushrooms, but I've seen crazy stuff on mushrooms. I don't know. I mean, I very much buy it.
Right.
But who's to say that what you see on mushrooms isn't a true and genuine vision?
Absolutely.
You know?
I mean, I think that's a really valid contemporary conversation.
Yeah. I love mushrooms.
Yeah, they're great.
I'm going to say that. I'm going to say that on camera. Yeah, well, I mean, that's really it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you have anything else you want to talk about in
No, I mean, no, not
this crazy mixed up world?
Right. I mean, not specifically at the moment. I feel like, you know, this whole story, Janet Reno, David Koresh, everything that we've got going in here, it winds up tying back into things we've talked about before, things we're going to talk about in the future. It seems to really be this, it's just such an enormous clusterfuck that in so many ways shows the lack of professionalism that goes on in these agencies that we're told to respect above our own lives, all right? The lack of professionalism that goes into this, the insane bias and power tripping that personnel are attracted to this type of work, in alignment with also showing that intentional communities and any kind of existing outside of capitalist authoritarianism is going to be met with extreme violence. And I think we see all three of those things in this particular situation. So I feel like I'll be bringing it up again in the future. But no, your coverage was amazing today. Thank you. It's awesome.
Oh my God, thank you. Thank you. I worked hard on this research, and
awesome.
I appreciate you saying that, you sweet little angel. And I'm so excited that we got our audio figured out. I think this episode is going to sound really crystal clear.
Yep.
And I just want to talk about some things I'm excited about in our collective future, which is upcoming episodes. We're scheming, like, the bushes. I think we talked about, like, redoing our QTV MK Ultra episode, which was our first episode. So I definitely know I have improved my approach, because at the time I started QTV, I was just like, I'm going to just get really stoned while Michelle tells me crazy conspiracies. And now, obviously, I'm approaching it a little differently.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for that. And what else do we talk about doing? I know there was at least one more.
Yeah, I want to do a nice expose kind of generally on censorship, suppression, silencing, propaganda, how those things go together, to start leading into also how surveillance is really about mind control. And I feel like there's a lot of lot of studying and groundwork to be laid before we can really pop out like a really nicely put together theory on that. But I want to go that direction and do an episode on that.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited. We have so much exciting stuff in store. I know soon we're going to get our Patreon up, too, to do some bonus content for people. We're actually kind of figuring out what kind of stuff we want to put up there. And, yeah, as always, if you want to find us on the internet, we're at Secret Antenna on Twitter, Instagram, MySpace, / Secret Antenna for Patreon coming soon. Secret Antenna at protonmail.com, and you can get in touch with us. You can talk to us, and we'll talk back. And so, thanks, Michelle. This was super fun.
Yeah.
I'm so, like, I'm really, this topic gets my brain going.
Thank you, Kallie.
Okay, talk to you later.
Bye.